Hi guys. I hope you guys are well and keeping safe. So today I'm going to be speaking to two teachers. Silly me thought that you could do a three-way for some reason. I must have dreamt it. um, but you can't. You can only do one teacher at a time. So I'm going to first be speaking to Prabhjit, who is a teacher, a year one teacher of 11 years. So it's this live has actually come at a really good time given the recent announcement where I think it's reception year one and year six. They're proposing that they go back on June the 1st. So I know there's been lots of mixed reactions, a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty. So I thought it would be a really good idea to catch up with teachers. So I'm going to add Prabhjit in now. How are you guys all feeling about the announcement? It'll be good to see in the comments. So we're going to start the first half hour with Prabhjit. Hi, Prabhjit, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Do you want to give us a little introduction, or I've yeah,
I'm a year five teacher, but
sorry, you're fine.
that's okay. That's okay because I know the conversation gets confusing. Um, so I work at Nishcombe School in West London, and I'm in my 11th year of teaching. Um, and I've got a 2.5-year-old, and I'm currently expecting my second baby. So I'm still having to work from home as a key worker. So yeah, so I completely understand because I've had so many conversations with parents, with teachers, with people sending me messages. So this is a fantastic idea that you're doing. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, I thought because I'm obviously a parent, I've shared quite a bit on this space about how I'm feeling, just quite overwhelming having to kind of manage work and then also the studying aspect. We're not teachers, you guys are the experts in that field. And also the fact that, the home environment is typically associated with chilling and relaxing and
Yeah,
you know, um, not having to study so much. And for us personally, it's been a real struggle trying to get Arjun to do any kind of work.
I've
Um,
had to transform your house into a classroom, right?
I tried all that. So I was that person. I was that person who, transformed the house, the downstairs, and thought, right, we're going to totally nail this, and it's going to be brilliant. And he was really excited in the beginning, and then I think I think if I'd managed to keep up the whole, we're going to wake up, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and I was able to give him my full undivided attention, maybe it could have worked. But the reality is, when you're trying to manage work and the house as well, it just didn't
It's
happen.
it's really hard, and actually, that's the conversation I've had with because we have to do weekly phone calls with all of our
Oh,
class children. So every day I try to call at least 5 to 6 children, and I end up having more of a conversation with the parents than the pupils. So
yeah,
pupils are really like they're a bit like, why is my teacher calling me? Hi, miss, and get all nervous. But the parents are they exactly the same. Started off really well. They're thinking it's only going to be a few weeks or so, and then it kept
yeah,
getting extended and then getting extended. And I think children kind of, unless they're in that set environment, they do see home as their, the discipline, so to speak, in teaching is not there. Um,
no,
Even though we're having to provide weekly lessons for the kids, give them the resources and things. I've got my little one screaming in the background.
that's all right.
um, it's not the same as having an actual teacher stand in front of you and
Yeah,
teach you and explain. And some of the parents have felt that they've almost had to take on the role of a teacher. I had one parent, I had not one, but I had several parents actually said to me, "We will never complain to you
no.
ever again when we see you because we literally understand where you come from now." So,
Yeah, no, it's tough. How are you feeling about the whole? I mean, so you're a year five teacher, so you won't
yeah,
be going back
yeah,
in June. How are you feeling about the whole kind of? So obviously, children are learning at different levels. Some children will be very engaged at home, some children are not so engaged. How are you feeling about? Well, will you be going back in September? Firstly, I mean, given you're pregnant, but how are you feeling about? you know, the fact that the teachers are the ones that are going to have to kind of pull together the fact that the class is going to be at very different levels,
I've
and
had
how is that going to
so many
work?
conversations like with teachers from my school, teachers from other schools. I've got a friend who's a deputy head in Harrow. And I've just been speaking to them like how they feel and talking about how we feel. I think it's too soon to
Yeah,
have all the schools come back on the 1st of June. I'm 100% with some of the teachers having to go in to do work with the most vulnerable children.
yeah,
Because I'm having to work from home because I'm having to do the 12-week isolation being pregnant. I'm
yeah,
still doing what I would do at school. So I'm waking up in the mornings, I'm logging on, I'm doing my PowerPoints and doing that. And thankfully, I can send my son to nursery where I know there's only 5 or 6 other kids, and I feel a bit more comfortable about that. But at the same time, if it was sending him to nursery full time in June, if they do open nursery, so I think my anxiety would go through the roof as well.
yeah.
Parents are really worried about sending their kids. You're never gonna get all the class together again June the 1st onwards, because you're going to still have parents who are a bit more cautious, a bit more anxious, and keeping their children at home. And
Yeah, and it's just so I'm completely torn on this, and I've had hundreds of messages today actually about we're so confused as well. We don't know what to do. We're torn. And for me, it's like, okay, we've got Sergeant who's got a compromised immune system,
yeah,
so we need to protect him. But on the other side, as a parent, I'm just like, oh gosh, am I kind of failing Arjun because I'm so worried that he's slipped so far behind. And for me, I don't even want him to learn anything new. I just want him to maintain the knowledge that he
yeah.
has.
And,
Um,
and that's fine. And I actually got sent this really amazing thing, because I've had parents who are a bit worried about children falling behind, or what if they forget what they've learned. And
yeah,
there's loads of I think I've been posting quite a few stuff on Facebook and on Instagram page about different resources that parents can access. And actually, this is the opportunity now to build our kids into resilient children, get them to learn the value of different things, get them to learn the value of spending time with the family, of
yeah,
appreciating the outdoors. And I know it's easier said than done, because there are days when you want to take hair out, because I have
yes,
everyone has those days. It's normal. You have those days when you go to work.
yeah.
But just when I start feeling like that, I think, actually, no, hold on, look, we're never going to get this time again.
Yeah.
Once we go back into that fast-paced life, you're going to be like, oh, I just want
I know, I regret it. I
to.
wish I could go back.
Yeah,
That's the thing, I
exactly.
feel like,
And there's a bit of a muddled confusion. So I would say to any parents who are concerned about their child falling behind, don't think of it as falling behind. Think of it as
yeah,
the whole country is in the same situation. The whole world is in the same situation. You're not alone.
yeah,
And just see it as, my child knows a lot. Do your little bit of reading with them every day, your little bit of maths, make it fun, interactive. But think about them doing things like, children in my class have learned how to ride a bike who never knew.
yeah,
They've learned how to, learned how to increase their fitness. They've learned how to bake things. I've got some of my most vulnerable kids who are sending me pictures saying, Miss, we're really sorry I didn't get to do the maths, but I did make homemade sushi. And I'm, instead of me going,
oh,
oh, why didn't you do your work? I'm saying, you know what, well done. Because I bet you had to
yeah,
weigh out
you
some ingredients.
know,
So you're doing maths,
yeah,
but in a practical way. So I think we just have to kind of look at things a little bit differently. And
yeah, and maybe get a bit more creative.
yeah,
It's just such a challenge. I love the fact that you're ringing your students. We've not had that, and although we have email, it just doesn't feel quite the same. So
I'm
for
sure
Arjun,
if you contact, if it depends on what the school is doing. So what I'm just
yeah,
at the
I
moment,
don't
and
know if
some
that's
parents are a bit like,
honestly.
oh, you don't need to call me again. You just spoke to me like last week. So I'm like, I'll email you then, or send you a message on the home
Yeah,
website. So
I think I'd really appreciate a phone conversation, maybe just to kind of maybe get the teacher to speak to him as well. But we
yeah,
haven't had that. We've had email. But yeah, I think the key is trying to bring yourself back to the reality of the situation that we are in. It isn't just oh, I'll keep you home because I fancy keeping you home. It's quite a real,
yeah.
scary situation. And like with Arjun, when we try and say to him, look, you just need to do a little bit, it's like, no, I don't want to. And I feel like we're constantly just butting heads. And I
Yeah.
don't want to remember this time for just arguing.
So
And I feel like that's what it's becoming.
I've some parents have said that, and I've said, so when you want them to do the homework or whatever that's set, how do you kind of tell them that you want them to do it? And some parents say,
Yeah,
right, your teacher sent me work and you have to do it. And I'm like, okay, so why don't you do it in an approach where you're more like, you know what, how about we spend some time together? I've got this really tricky maths question. I don't know how to do it. I bet you can't tell me. And
yeah,
I think some of the parents are now starting to word things slightly differently just because
definitely.
they're making it sound like they want to get involved. And I
Yeah,
100% understand there are parents who are doing their own work, so they can't necessarily sit with their
yeah,
children all the time. And I get that. And we've just given the children flexibility of up to 2-3 days to get work done because they only need 40-50 minutes and then it's done. And if we can limit screen time for the kids as well, that's good as well. Because screen time, it was my savior first. So I thought, oh yeah, great, Disney Plus, I've downloaded that, I've got that, I've got
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And now it's more like, when my son is at home, he's called Arjun as well.
Yeah.
When he's at home, he loves spending time with my father-in-law. They'll be out in the garden,
Oh,
with
I
his
love that.
toolkit. My father-in-law was with his toolkit fixing things. But, there is loads of anxiety. Even if schools do open, what we are worried about is keeping the children 2 meters apart. You can't do
Yeah.
that. And what I don't understand is why the government are so keen to send reception in year one instead of older children. If you're going to
I heard
open
that.
schools,
Yeah,
surely you
I heard that it was something to do with the foundations kind of being set in reception in year one, and if the kids miss out on that, it's quite a big thing. I don't know how true.
I get that, and I'm sure I think Mandy probably be a bit more of an expert
Yeah,
on Key Stage 1. But with younger children, you can't say to them, right, stand in that 2 meters apart. You
no,
can't. They won't. Whereas older children get that. So if you are going to open schools for a month before July,
yeah,
I mean it's a month. At the end of the day, when you think about it, it's a month. They've already
yeah,
missed out on this much.
yeah, exactly. What is
Yeah, there's a greater risk. Then you have to worry about things like toilets and cleaning them after they're used. You have to think about the lunches. You have to think about just children who will run to each other and hug each other and high five.
yeah.
You cannot physically restrain them. So
No, and I think the whole thing that, oh, kids don't get that sick, but it's like, yeah, but they could have the symptoms and just not show them and then just pass it on like
they're the
wildfire.
carriers, aren't they? Exactly. They can
Yeah,
be
they're
the
carriers, exactly. But it's just, yeah, it's so tough. I know, and there's so many parents that have replied today just saying, echoing kind of the same thing. Like, I'm trying so hard to be in the moment and like, it's so.
patient.
And in the beginning, he wasn't watching much TV. They had their guinea pig and they were just roaming around with him and it was brilliant. And then the guinea pig died and it was like, God, this is not what we need right now, which was quite sad. But now it just seems to be, okay, I've done my 5 minutes of homework. I want to go and watch TV, or I want to go and he's been playing a PlayStation 4 game, Cars, Disney Cars. But he's like, I want to play Cars, and it's
Okay.
just like, oh my gosh, Arjun, like, how do we kind of curb this and bring it back, And we've tried
Yeah.
reward charts, but you know what? You know what the thing is? I do feel like it's partly me to blame because I'll start something and then I just lose my momentum. I
You know
just,
what? But don't do that. And you're not the only one doing that. Parents will
yeah,
blame them. Oh, I'm taking my anger out. I'm doing this. I'm losing my patience. Don't do it to yourself.
yeah,
Everyone in the whole world is in the same situation. It's horrible, but you know what? At the end of the day, just keep thinking to yourself, there is light at the end of the tunnel. There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
yeah.
Teaching is always going to be. There were talks about how children, if they go back, they should repeat a year as well. But how would that work then?
How
I
would
think the
that work?
government are doing. I think what they're doing is they're just saying all these things, and I know they're talking in. They're in talks with the education um, minister, etc. But when they're on the news, they're so vague about what they're doing.
Yeah, it's
Us
not very
teachers are
clear.
clueless anyway. Yeah.
Well, how are you guys feeling? So
Sorry.
with teachers, this is maybe more applicable to Mandy because you don't have to go back, but are they, do teachers have more, are you guys being kept in the loop constantly? Or it must be really unsettling for you guys as well, just not knowing. I mean, if parents are feeling this way,
I mean, my school
how are
is,
you
they're really
guys?
good, to be fair. Like our head teacher, she's amazing. They they're following the government guidelines. So the minute they hear an update, so for example, as soon as they release the update of schools possibly opening June the 1st, depending on the rate of infection staying down, she sent the whole staff an email to just reassure us to stay calm. Look, we're not going to rush into anything until we've got the proper systems in place at school. We're having loads of meetings. So that's quite nice. It's reassuring. But at the same time, they're just as frustrated as us, them being the leadership team, because they're not getting clarity from the government, but they can only give us reassurance from what they know. So it's a bit like the news travels down the chain, but you're not getting the full picture.
Yeah, and it must be tough for those teachers as well that have children that are kind of torn. I mean, is it going to be a case of, okay, if school's open and you're a teacher that works in one of those years, you have to go back? Or, you know, do they also get to exercise some choice? Like, I don't know how much of a choice the rest of us have, but it feels like there's more of a choice.
They did the news actually earlier on, and I got really annoyed because one of the journalists asked a really good question. They said, you know, some parents, the government is saying, parents who don't feel comfortable about sending their kids back to school, they are entitled to keep their children at home. But then he said, is that the same for teachers? If the teachers do not feel comfortable about going back to work, are you going to be forcing them as staff, or is there going to be, like, you know, punishment in place, so to speak?
Yeah.
The education minister, well, not the education minister, he's the housing minister who's doing the talk. He simply said, oh, they're in talks with the unions and we will do what we can to make sure staff feel comfortable. What does that tell us, though? That doesn't say, yes, we can stay at home by choice, or no, we can't. So, you know,
yeah, or is there a more
it's so frustrating for teachers.
Yeah,
as frustrating as parents are. Yeah,
I can only begin to imagine how frustrating it is for teachers, because not only there's so many different things to consider as well, isn't it? It's not only, you obviously got a personal perspective, you know, your own safety, especially being pregnant, your family's safety, but then on the other side you've got my kids, you know, where are the kids at, and are they doing okay? And, you know, for those children that are going back, they're all probably going to react very differently to the situation. You know, Arjun doesn't want to go back to school. He's like, nope, I'm fine at home. I'm not going back.
some kids are like that. I miss my class so much. Like, I didn't even get to say bye to them, because obviously when I had to tell my head teacher that I was pregnant, it was like, okay, work to the end of the day and then that's it, because then I have to start my 12 weeks. So I couldn't tell my kids I was pregnant. I couldn't say bye, I'm not going to see you again tomorrow. I just kind of left, and I felt so bad. And I remember driving past the school when, after dropping my son, I was like, I'm just going to drive past school. And I got so emotional. I was crying in my car. I just want to say hi to my babies. I think being able to make phone calls home just makes me feel a bit more happier that I'm still communicating with them. And we're sending them emails and setting them work. And, you know, the parents are really on board with it, which really helps. We've adapted some of the learning, so we actually use BBC bite-sized lessons, which is fantastic because it's got video links and ready-made worksheets different, and, you know, the pupils are you know, enjoying the fact that it's a bit more interactive, so they're really, really positive about it. So that's really good. And I think for us, we focus more on the vulnerable children as well as everybody else in the class. The minute somebody says to me, oh, you know, my son or my daughter is really upset, they're not talking that much, they're not doing this. One of the children didn't want to talk to me on the phone the other day because he was, the mum said he was having a bit of a tantrum. I said, look, let him calm down. I'll give you a call at the end of the week and we'll see how we get on, and just update you by email. So I think parents love that reassurance that, you know, we can still rely on the teacher. So I try to do what I can on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday when Arjun's at nursery, because when he's at home with me on Thursday, Friday, there is no way on earth I can get that work done. So, like, he wants to sit on my lap and type on my keyboard, and you know, he wants to have this to eat, that to eat, go outside, mummy do this, mummy do that. He's really clingy when he's
when you're together.
Yeah, no, my husband works from home, but it's just too much for them, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, it's just so it's just so confusing on, you know, where this is going and how it's all going to pan out. And, you know, I know one day we'll look back and think, wow, we survived that. I mean, you know, there's key workers that are having to go to work, you know, frontline workers and all of this, and you think, my goodness, if us parents are feeling like this, how must they be feeling? Like they've only got so much of a choice.
Yeah.
So it's reassuring. I think it's brilliant that you're doing the phone calls. I think it's brilliant that you're keeping in touch and directly speaking to the children as well. I think that just makes the world of difference. It almost brings school alive at home. You know, like in Arjun's mind, I think he thinks, oh, school's just gone. It's just disappeared. And it's fine.
Permanent summer holiday.
Yeah.
When we have half terms coming up, we'll just set the children like a project, you know, to do. And we used to do that before the lockdown anyway, because we decided they do enough writing, they do enough maths, so they can do a project, they can build something, do a cooking activity or anything like that. A really good initiative that my school has put into place is a no screens day next week.
Okay.
So as part of Mental Health Awareness Week, what they've done is they've introduced no screens day on Thursday, which means whatever work that we want the children to do on the Thursday has to be printed off or whatever on the Wednesday, but make it practical. So in my team, there's 2 Year 5 teachers, 2 Year 6 teachers. I'm going to set a cooking task. One of the teachers is going to set create your own board game task. Another teacher is setting an outdoor PE activity task. And
I love it.
just to make sure, and teachers as well, so the staff are all involved. We're not going to be logging on, checking emails, doing anything on homework things. We're going to have our own time as well. So I'm really glad.
That's a really good idea.
That could be an initiative that maybe if other teachers are listening, they can share it with their school to say, look, why don't we do so? It's Mental Health Awareness Week, and right now I think we could all do with looking after
and making it a thing amongst younger children as well, because I don't think, I mean, at home when Arjun gets really worked up, because he does get worked up sometimes, he's made a little area in his bedroom which has got all his favorite kind of bits in it. There's like this chain, and there's like random toys that he just likes that just kind of seem to calm him down. And so he's called it his little rainbow forest or something. So I'm like, you need to go up whenever you need a break, just go on. But now he uses it as an excuse to just escape.
I need to go
to the rainbow forest. I'm like, okay.
You know what? I think I need to go to your rainforest.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I join you? See what it says. Come along, Mum.
No, it's tough. I mean, he's being set, you know, X amount of work each week, and he's not doing even half of it. And that's where, you know, when you just think, oh my gosh, am I doing my child a service? Like, but I'm sure there's, you know, I'm not alone. I'm sure there's other parents in a similar position, and we're fortunate, you know, there's vulnerable kids at home as well. My heart literally goes out to them. It's not a nice situation.
So
but
I see in the news some of these amazing, like in especially in more deprived areas as well, where things like access to school lunches and stuff, and you see these teachers who are walking and deliver, and I just think, you know what, that is amazing. I wish I could be outside. Like, I feel guilty, like I wish I could be outside doing more, like helping out, you know, with food and food banks and things like that. But obviously, me being pregnant, I have to limit and just do my essential bits. And so dropping my son to nursery is about the only outside, and going to the park.
And I think even being able to take care of your children at the moment, that's a big enough endeavor as well, isn't it? Just being able to look after them. I wanted to do some PPE sewing actually, because I've obviously got the sewing machines, and I was speaking to my mother-in-law because she's been doing it, and she sort of said to me, she said, don't put that pressure on yourself, you know, like you're struggling with doing X, Y, Z, and it's true, there's only so much you can do, you know, especially when you've got the children at home. So
my son loves, he loves the Thursday clap. Like, I will say to him, Arjun, who do we clap for? And he goes, for all the doctors and for everybody. And if he hasn't fallen asleep, we have him outside. He's got a little drum kit, so he takes that outside, smashes the drums, or he does his clapping, and he looks at everybody on the road. And I love that he's so involved in that. And even though he's such a young age, he's only 2.5, he kind of understands that Thursday evenings is clapping day. Like, he knows he'll get ready. Sometimes he'll have his shoes by the door ready to go. It's so good. And I just think, when did you grow up? Like, if you were at nursery and I was working, I would never see this.
No, exactly. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's just cherishing this time, I think, is so important. And I agree. Somebody just said that teachers deserve a massive round of applause. The amount of work that goes unnoticed is immense, and it's so true. Like, I don't the amount of pressure that you guys must be under right now is, I can't even imagine it. And the uncertainty that you guys are going through as well. It's not like you've got
No,
a crystal ball and you know what's going to
my
happen
friend's
in the
like,
future.
you're just so calm about it all, and I think I just learned how to hide my anxiety really well.
Yeah.
I just think if I start showing my panic, and I'm not, trying to calm parents down or talk to them, then I'm not really doing my job, so to speak. So I think
No.
all of us teachers are, and I appreciate my staff. I appreciate my friends who are teachers so much more, as well as I've got so many family members who are like doctors and working at frontline as well.
Yeah.
But you appreciate their role so much more. And my
Yeah.
friend who's a deputy head, she sent me this really nice picture, and I think at the bottom of it, one quote was, your child could become a great leader who is the one who's emerged from having had a slow and simple pace of life rather than
Yeah.
all this rush and hubbub, and they've
Yeah.
learned what little things really matter in life.
Yeah.
So Arjun, Sergeant, anybody else's children who are really young, one day when they're older, they could become one of the great leaders because they went through this period where actually instead of worrying so much about the equation of A plus B equals whatever,
Yeah.
they've learned about the simple things in life that really matter. And
Yeah.
I think when parents find themselves getting worked up, going, my child's going to fall behind, I want my child to go to a grammar school, just think, hold on, my child is so busy doing tuition, this club, that club, maths homework, this homework, that homework. They couldn't even ride a bike, but now they can. They couldn't
Yeah.
even, they couldn't even measure ingredients to join in with a cooking activity, but now they can. Loads of parents will always do things like cooking themselves, cleaning themselves. I give the mop to my son. He loves it. He does the
Yeah.
washing on the floor
No,
sometimes.
I've
It's
taught
just,
Arjun stuff like using the washing machine. I mean, so he measures it all out, and so it is nice. I think it's just getting creative and just not getting into this kind of state of you've got to do your work, you've got to do. I found myself getting really wound up because I'm just like, just do it. If you just did it, then
how lucky are we with the weather as well, though?
I know it's been lovely. It's
I,
been really nice.
I think people would be even more stressed and upset if it was pouring with rain and cold. It's like Mother Earth knew this is happening, but let's give them all something to enjoy, like the
To
sunshine.
enjoy, yeah.
And kids need that, don't they? They need to have that.
They do
outdoor
need it.
sunshine.
Yeah, run wild in the garden. That's what my two have been doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Prabhjit, thank you so much for
Oh,
joining.
thank you
It's
so
been
much
a
for
pleasure
having me.
speaking
I've
to you.
loved
And
it.
thank you for doing the job that you do. And I think you're doing an amazing job. Like you sound like you're so hands-on with your kids, and
Yeah.
it's really nice to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And if
You're so
friends who want to
welcome.
reach out and have a chat, just let them know they can contact me anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. Take care. Look after yourself.
And you. Bye. Bye.
See you later.
See you.
See ya. Right, so next we'll be speaking to Mandy, who is a year one teacher of 11 years. And it's going to be really interesting speaking to Mandy as well, because Arjun's year one and Mandy will be due to return on the 1st of June if schools do open. So I'm just going to wait for Mandy to join. Let me just see. Just waiting for her to. Let's see if that works. If you guys have any additional questions, please do include them.
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. It's been a bit of a crazy week because we've actually got a care camp running at school at the moment.
Okay.
And it was split a week for every teacher to cover. And so, funny enough, actually, this is my week. So I've been at school already this week, looking after the key worker kids and the vulnerable kids that we've obviously got in at the moment. So yeah, so it's all just been a bit crazy with being back in for the week after having been off for so long, as well as like all this news that's happening right now about going back on the 1st of June. So yeah, it's all just been a bit mental this week.
How are you feeling about it all? So how are you feeling about, how was the care camp firstly? How were the children? Were they okay? How are you feeling after being at school?
To be honest, I mean, at the moment we've only got a couple of kids. We've got a few kids off because they are isolating because they had symptoms and things like that. So it has obviously been a little bit sort of all over the place. And also it's difficult with vulnerable kids because their parents don't actually want to send them in. So it's been quite a struggle to try and, we know they'll be safer at school, but the parents feel like they'll be safer at home. So it's, you know, a bit of a battle. The kids are doing well, but you know, they're just trying to roll with it just as much as we are.
Kids are
You
quite
know,
resilient, aren't they, compared to us? They're a lot
yeah,
more.
they are. I mean, obviously, the way they see it is they're not at school. It's like they know they're kind of like in a care camp because there's only a few of them, so they're kind of just trying to make the most of it. And I mean, you know, we can go in with all the will in the world of planning all these amazing activities, but actually, and I know this because I worked previously in a cancer ward where, in a primary school in a cancer ward. So I know that actually you can come in with all these amazing ideas of like, you know, having all these activities planned, but actually you've got to make it child led. So,
Yeah.
you know, I come in the morning and say, right, you know, I've got all these activities, and I can see in the kids' faces straight away, are they into it? Are they not? If they're not, or sometimes they'll just say themselves, can we do this instead? And I'm like, that's
Fine.
what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
Oh,
You
I
want
love
to do
that.
that? Yeah, we'll go with that, because actually right now, that's what the kids need. They
Yeah.
don't need, right, you know, sit down, write this, do your work, do your schoolwork. It's more about, what do you want to do? Okay, you know what? That's what we're going to do.
Would you say that's the case for children even at home with their parents? Is that the approach that we should be adopting? Because I've been doing basically what you just said we shouldn't be doing. I mean, you know, just now before I came up, we were like, Arjun, just bloody do your one worksheet and then you're done. And he's just like, well, I don't want to do. You guys are the meanest parents in the world. And it's like, oh my God. So
No,
what would your advice be? Because honestly, there's so many parents out there that are just like, we don't know what to do. We're so fed up. The children have completely lost interest. It's hard when you're working and you're trying to manage, you know, getting them to do some studying. I'll be honest with you, the first 3 weeks that school sent work home, I don't know why, I didn't realise. Didn't do any of that. We did do a few of our own little bits, but
yeah.
the last 2 weeks, the work that's been sent home, he's maybe done a third at a really big push. And I just, am I letting him down? Like, you know, he's just not into it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're constantly butting heads and locking horns. And am I actually doing the right thing? Or should I just be going with the flow a little bit and just chill out? It's really difficult.
That's it. Honestly, go with the flow, just chill. You know, the main thing is that when they come back to school, we are going to be picking up those pieces. Everything that they've missed out on, we will be picking that up. That all of that stuff is going to be retaught. You know, we are the masters of filling in those gaps. You know, that's what we're trained to do. When kids come back, even in September, there's always big gaps. You know the kids that have done things over the summer, and then the ones that have just basically done nothing all of summer.
My kids.
And you know, and so we're trained to find those gaps, fill in those gaps, and move on. And I think, you know, that there's been that battle of parents who are really like, okay, I've got to make sure Monday to Friday, 8 till 3, my kids are working all day long and have a rigid structure. And then the other parents who are just like, this isn't working, I can't do it, it's not happening. And I think it's just about having a little bit of a balance, but also, you know, don't worry about the academic stuff. My biggest thing, really, as a year 1 teacher especially, is life skills. You know, I would really appreciate when my kids come to school and can do up their own zip, handle their own buttons, you know, tie their shoelaces if they're coming to school with
I just learned to do that.
You know, yeah, things like that. You know, even in the care camps, we've got kids who couldn't ride bikes who in 2 weeks have now learnt to ride a bike at school. You know, all of those things, you know, when we've done cooking at school, kids don't know what the cheese grater is called or what a knife is called, because they've never had that experience of going in the kitchen. You know, get them in the kitchen, get them doing all these things at home, all these life experiences that, you know, they can do now. If the rest of the day they're playing, let them play.
Yeah, no, we're having this. How are you feeling about the whole 1st of June returning back to school? What are your thoughts? You know, from a personal perspective with your home situation, and B, from a teacher perspective, how are you feeling about it?
It's absolutely too soon. It doesn't make any logistical sense. It's going to be an absolute nightmare, and to be honest, there isn't going to be any social distancing. It just can't happen in schools.
It won't happen.
No, and the government's very they've been very unclear about what they are expecting schools to do, and actually everything in their guidelines, it says where possible. So it says social distancing where possible, you know, don't mix the kids, where everything's where possible. So does that then mean if it's not possible, you just carry on? I mean, because I've been at school the last few days, I've been having this conversation with my head teacher, and you know, he's just like, I don't know what we're doing.
I feel really sorry for the teacher. I feel really sorry for you guys, because it sort of, it's a lot of pressure on you as well in terms of, you know, this whole social distancing thing. I mean, it's going to be, there's so many different factors that come into play when the kids do come back. First of all, the gaps that we just spoke about. Second of all, you know, the mental impact it would have had on the children. It's a really confusing time. I don't know how much Arjun even gets it. We've tried to explain it to him, but I don't know how much he actually gets it. And then number three, this whole social distancing thing, you know, trying to keep them apart, it's just, and we're expecting one teacher in that whole classroom, plus the TAs, to manage all of that. It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work. Like, having been in the care camp for the last few days, we've only got 5 children in that care camp. And I'll tell you, when I first walked in on Monday, the social distancing lasted all of 5 minutes. And then it was literally, because you cannot set a child a task without then going over to see what they're doing, how they're doing it. Naturally, the kids will just play together. So actually, from the beginning of the week, we were just like, this isn't going to work, forget it, let's move on and just get on with it. What they're proposing at the moment is that there's going to be classes of 15. Now, if you're in a classroom of 15 children, there's absolutely no way that there's social distancing, because, I mean, in my classroom, I have 5 tables. So, you know, if I've got 15 children, there's no way they're going to be 2 meters apart. It's not possible. And what they're proposing really isn't going to work, because initially what they've said is, okay, you've got 15 children in a class with a teacher. So I stay with my 15 kids. I don't mix with any of the other kids in the school or any of the other teachers. So that is how they're trying to say that it's going to be contained. Whether we have lunch even in my classroom, if we go outside to play, we only go when there's no other children out there. So it's just me and my 15 children. However, when my children go to the toilet, they'll be going to the same toilet that children from all the other classes are going to. They're 5-year-olds. Majority of the time they come back and say, I forgot to wash my hands. Or if you ask them, did you wash your hands? Oh, no, I didn't. And off they go back to wash their hands. So even if we're staying in my classroom with my 15 kids and just me and them, they're going to the toilet, touching things, contaminating things that other kids are going to come back to. They're taking it back to the other classrooms. So actually it's not going to work. No, and the only way that I think the only way really that, you know, we can try and maintain it is actually if parents decide to send their kids to school, it's making sure that those families are following the social distancing rules, making sure that they're not going to other people's houses, they're not meeting their friends, they're not meeting other people in their family, because I know I would feel more comfortable going in knowing that I followed the rules. I'm going to work and coming home and that's it. I'm not meeting other members of my family or my friends, and knowing that, okay, all those children that I've got have literally come to school and gone home, and that's all that they're doing. but I can't know that, and that's what's really scary for me, is that I don't know who they're going home and mixing with. I don't know if they're following the rules, and then to then put myself at risk and put my family at risk, you know, it puts you really in a position where you're like, what
you're
do you do?
torn,
I know
aren't
it's
you?
my job, but is it fair to put myself in that risk, and the kids as well?
It's such a tough call, and I think because we almost forget that people are actually dying from this. Like, lots of people are dying from this. It's not just a minor thing, but you know, given how kind of poorly lockdown even went, you know, there were still people all over the shop, and the fact that they've relaxed things even more, the likelihood of it, you know, being better contained by the 1st of June is so unlikely. I just think you'll give people more freedom to go and basically.
Yeah, I think the reason why they're thinking, you know, that okay, let's get schools back is because you know, they've said that, I mean, they obviously year 6, they're worried about their transition of them going into high school.
Yeah.
Which I understand. And then year reception in year 1, they're worried about their development and all the basic things that they're learning at that point, and I understand that. However, what they're saying right now is what they're following is the transmission between young children is low. So that's how they're justifying that it's okay for the younger ones to come back. However, what the unions are battling with right now is that since March, they've been asking what the transmission from children to adults is.
Exactly.
Because from children to children, they've released the figures and it's low. So that's what they're not worried about, but they haven't released the figures from children to adults. And apparently that those figures are going to be released the day before the 1st of June. So it's all, the unions are fighting with, what are you trying to hide? Why are you not releasing these? And why would you do it the day before everyone's preparing to go back to school?
School, yeah, like totally throwing a spanner in the works, by which time you guys would have prepared everything. When will you know for sure whether schools are opening on the 1st of June or not? When will we know that? Because it's saying that they're planning, but is that or what does that mean?
I think that it's going to be based on the government. So I think maybe I think what Boris said was that he'll be reviewing it during half term. So I think once it comes to half term, which is the last week of May, that is when I think he'll make the final decision of yes, because obviously at the moment he said maybe, he hasn't set it in stone that 100% we're opening in June. So he's saying he's going to review it during half term, and then obviously going forward. Some schools have decided already categorically no. They have said they are going to open in September. It is a little bit down to the schools. If they feel like it's not safe, they can make that decision.
So they can make that decision.
Yeah,
individual schools are.
Some schools are making that decision, that they're just saying it's not possible, because ultimately the guidelines say where possible. So if the schools feel like it's not possible and they don't feel safe, you know,
they can just
yeah. And also the unions are saying telling teachers to refuse to go in. So now if teachers start refusing to go in, and then you've got teachers who are pregnant, who are in the vulnerable category, in the 12-week isolation, so actually then that starts reducing the number of staff that are available to actually come into school if they've got underlying health issues. And if then the school doesn't have enough staff, they can't.
You can't open the school, can you? No.
And also the parents, because a lot of parents are saying they're not willing to send them in. So
no, yeah, I mean, we got the questionnaire today. I think everybody must have got that same kind of questionnaire. And I think a lot of kind of Arjun's class were maybes, because it's just, you know, for us, I've obviously got the battle of, I'm feeling really guilty about Arjun falling behind, but on the other side, I've got Sergeant who is vulnerable, and you know, it's weighing that up. I'm feeling like I'm kind of holding on to that because of another child, but at the same time, you know, in the grand scheme of things, what is more important? You know, my children's lives are what's more important.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying about actually we will, you know, the teachers are fully aware of the fact that there are going to be gaps. There's going to be some children that are really on it and excited by studying. And then there's other children like Arjun that just, he associates home as home, very comfortable, very relaxed, and he just, I'm not a teacher, I'm his mummy, and he just finds it really hard. And I've, you know, as parents, while we're trying to work as well, my patience is just non-existent. So it's just like, just do it, just do it, just do it. And it's like, you know, that's not helpful either. So that's really comforting to know that, no, you know, the teachers are going to be there to kind of help fill those gaps and bring everybody up to speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know,
start thinking about, oh my god, there's going to be sets and things like that, and is he going to end up in a really low set because he's I need to just chill though.
No, exactly, that's the main thing. Like I said, like, you know, it's got to be child-led, and, you know, yes, there is a time and a place for them doing work, but also we've got to look at it from, you know, the flip side, even as adults. And I know everyone who, you know, is working from home, even when you're working in an office, let's be real, how much do we focus? How long do we concentrate for? How long can we concentrate for as an adult? Like, do you know what I mean? And that, we have to remember them with children, that actually their concentration is so much lower. And you know, you've also got to remember that, you know, parents are probably thinking, right, you know, they have an hour of English in the morning, and they have an hour of maths, and then they have an hour of these lessons in the afternoon. However, that hour is broken up into maybe 4 or 5 different segments of maybe maximum 15 to 20-minute activities. So they're not, you know, although they're learning, that learning is spread over, and those activities are short, quick, snappy, let's move on. And, you know, I think the thing the parents need to realize is that actually if you do 20 minutes, 15 minutes of learning, and then they spend the rest of the day playing, they're still learning other things in the time that they're playing, you know. And it's also,
what would you say is the right amount of time for them to be studying? How long is it okay for somebody in year 1? What is the right amount of time? Is how much on English and math? We only really do English and maths, if I'm completely honest with you, if we're lucky. What is the right amount of time?
I think, you know, obviously if you're trying to do the work, the school set, you know, maybe 15 to 20 minutes, if that. Like, I think that is really the maximum you should be sitting down, maybe a day. But also, you know, veering away from what the school's saying, there's so many other things, and I think it's just about being creative and thinking outside the box. And I know as parents, you know, you've got so much going on, trying to run a household, trying to work from home and do all of the other things you've got to do, and in this time it's just trying to maybe find a little bit of time to actually plan out other things, think outside the box. And sometimes I know it's really hard, but think of other activities. It could be English, but they want to play on their PlayStation or the Nintendo Wii or on their games console for a couple of hours. Get them to write you a letter to persuade you why.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Still English, you know, they're still writing. And it doesn't have to be something where they sit down and it has to be directed learning. It could be an activity that you set them, and mostly it should be an activity that you set them that they can do independently, maybe that you can supervise, but it shouldn't be where you're sitting down and having to sit there with them. Because also remember, in a classroom
you don't do that.
Very minimal time. We have 30 kids, you know, there's not one-to-one going on in a classroom. So actually you should be setting them activities that can just be supervised, and, you know, you could go back and look over, or setting them something that they can do pretty much by themselves,
pretty much alone. I think that's like on my birthday, Arjun was so excited, and he was like, I'm going to make you a menu. And I was like, oh my god, he's going to write. Yes, he's going to do some writing. That was my first thought, right? And he did it, and he did it within 5 minutes. And I was like, do you know what? You've just done your studying. You've just done your English for the day. And his
Yeah.
teacher said to me, she said, if he's spelling things wrong, as long as they're phonetically correct, don't correct him, because you're just going to knock his confidence. To be
Yeah.
honest, I think I've got a new appreciation for how complicated the English language is. It's just
Exactly. I
any
mean, it's the hardest.
oh,
Yeah, it's the hardest one. We've got the most sounds out of any other language, so you know it's very difficult. But that's it. That's the key. As long as though the activities that they're doing are relatively based around those kinds of things, then they're still learning. So there's no
yeah,
need for them. There's no need to worry about, oh no, they haven't sat down and done this and done 20 minutes today. Like you said, he wrote a menu. Even if it took him 5 minutes,
yeah,
that's
he's done.
amazing. There's so many different skills that he's learning from having written a menu. The purpose of his writing. We look at different purposes of writing, whether it's letter writing, story writing, writing a menu. So things like that is great. And also, even in terms of money, I know there's so many ideas of what you could do. Like, for example, if you have a pot of change at home, even if you have, if you have the children, even if you set a task, I think what is really great is getting the kids to get in on making a list of what they're going to do, structure their day, sit down and make a list together at the end of the day. Right, what are we going to do tomorrow? Let them choose. Okay, let them write down. Right, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to watch TV, I'm going to go and play with my toys, I'm going to do this, whatever, have lunch. Let them write those things down. Let them
Oh,
be.
there you go. And he's just done his. Yeah, he's just done his English.
Yeah, let him be responsible for his activities. And when he completes those activities, maybe he gets a bit of money each time. For each activity he completes, he gets some money. At the end of the day, for the activities he's completed, he gets some money. The next day, have a list of things, of snacks from the kitchen. He can use that money to buy the snacks. He has to then work out the change. What snacks does he choose? What change does he have? Not only is that money management skills, it's maths. And it makes it fun. So there's so many other things. I think parents have to just try and move away from thinking, I have to get them to sit down and work.
Yeah, the bog standard way of doing things.
Yeah, it's just finding all the other sort of fun ways for them to learn right now, and enjoying that time as much as you can. When you're working, you're working. I mean, also using sort of like a timer, or I had a really great idea of having like a lamp. So this is like the learning lamp. While the lamp's on, we're doing learning. Once the lamp goes off, you're free to go and do whatever you want. Just to focus them a little bit for concentration, because that's really hard. So to have something to know that there's a timer there, I can physically see. I use that in my classroom all the time, a timer, to say, right, here's a timer. Soon as this time is out, this is then what we're going to do once the time is finished. You'll get to go and play. So that's how long you've got to concentrate for. Give them something to work towards.
I might get a timer, actually. That's because it's visual as well. Yeah. It's like, okay, I need to get this done before that's run out, and then I'm done. I'm free.
That's it, exactly. So that's my time. I know I've just got to sit down and do this for that long. And using the whole, I always say using the when rule. So when you've done this, you can go and do this. When that's finished, you can go and do this. So using that kind of idea, and just trying to be creative, think out the box. Think about all the other learning experiences that they can have. Getting them just basic life skills are really important. And in terms of concentration, like I said, it's got to be geared towards them. It's got to be child-led. Give them responsibility for it. Let them choose the activities. Let them do something let them do what they want to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, I said, with the care camp, I've been asking the kids, well, this is what I had planned. Is that what you want to do? Do you want to do something else?
Let me see what some of these questions are. That just froze, didn't it? I'm just
Yeah,
quickly
it
having a
did.
scan of the question. So somebody said, if we have covered stuff with our kids, then is there a risk that they will get bored in class until the class has caught up with them? My worry is that A will get bored and pick up lazy habits in that time.
Again, I think the thing is, especially in this time, there are children who are getting a lot of support and doing all the work that we're saying, and probably if not more. I mean, I know I can tell some of the children who are completing the activities that I'm saying, they didn't do that on their own. I can
Yeah.
tell from the vocabulary, from the quality of the work, you know, they've had a lot of support. And then I can
Yeah.
tell the difference between the children that haven't had that support. And then, you know, the fact is that when we come back, even in a normal classroom every day without having had all this COVID stuff,
Yeah. Deal
there
with
are
that.
there's different abilities in the class, and we are trained to make sure we maintain the, you know, the attention and the focus of our higher ability kids all the way down to the lower ability kids, and
Yeah.
making sure everything we do is differentiated. That is the biggest key thing. So I don't think worrying about that is going to be the key. I mean, it is going to be difficult to get children back at school anyway. They've been at home with their parents all this time, so leaving their parents, just leaving. So many kids don't want to come back to school.
Arjun doesn't
So
want to
they're
go back.
happy at home. Yeah. So many
He
of my
loves
children, yeah, I've spoken to so many of my children. Like, I make them videos all the time. I've set up my little classroom in here.
I love
I'll show you a little bit. Like, there's my whiteboard.
Oh,
I've
I
got
love
a
that.
whole,
You
like,
you
flamingo.
support it like that.
So it's like
Like
my whole little classroom, because my
I
class
love
is flamingo. So yeah, so like, you know, I make them videos all the time. I make them learning videos as well. And you know, I speak to them, and they're all just like, yeah, this is great. We're happy at home. Like, they get to see my face. I read them books. I've been reading them stories all the time. Make a video of me reading a story and send it to them. And they're just like, I'm happy being at home. This is great. So, but yeah, worrying about the gap between where kids are going to be, that's what we're trained to do. That's our job. And making sure that, you know, they're engaged, they're learning, and they're learning at their level. And sometimes, you know, you can have children who are in my class, for example. I sometimes have children who are below year one level, and then children who are above year one, and then you've got the
Yeah.
non-when ones that are expected. So you've got to make sure you're reaching them all.
Constantly. Yeah.
So that definitely isn't anything anybody needs to
Worry about.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, people have said it's a great time to encourage kids to think outside the box and not to limit into historic methods of learning. We all learn in different ways. It's so true. I love that you're keeping in touch with the kids, you're calling them. Arjun hasn't actually spoken to his teacher since he left school, so I don't know if there's a bit of a disconnect there as well.
Yeah.
Almost like it's a distant memory for him.
Yeah.
So that might be something that I kind of try and maybe ask his teacher to call us. To see, I love what you did. I think it's...
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I think, especially at this young age, you know, I think it's really important for them to, with all of this going on, it's so unsettling. It's like, you know, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of things going on even at home for children, you know, just having to be with each other and parents, and not being able to go out and getting that break from anyone at home and stuff. And I think so it's important for them to see someone familiar, hear their teacher's voice, just have that little interaction. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth following up with the school to say,
and maybe think. Yeah, it's been so lovely speaking to you, Mandy. Honestly, I feel so much better. I feel calmer. I don't feel... I think we're going to maybe implement some of those ideas at home, because literally, if I ask him now, make a list of what we're doing tomorrow, in theory, that's his work for today done. His English is done because he's made the list without actually doing any formal studying. I think it's such a brilliant idea. You've given some really great tips.
I think even,
so
you know, sitting down together, even if it's just reading, even if it's, you know, I'm going to sit here with my book, come and sit next to me and sit here with your book. it's, you know, being that bit of that role model, even if it's, I'm going to work on my laptop for 20 minutes, come and sit here and do some writing with me for 20 minutes while you're doing the work. Those kinds of things.
Yeah,
You know
just kind of mimicking the right behaviour.
Yeah.
It's been so lovely. Maybe in a couple of weeks we can catch up when we know what the situation is and whether kids are going back. But
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you everybody
Thank
for joining.
you.
See you later. Bye.